basically, to sum up this paper that I'm reading here, is just this fact is that natural eunuchs were considered normal, okay? That all their body parts, they could procreate if they wanted to, they could inherit land, they can have children, they basically, seen as sort of normal, as opposed to a castrated male was seen as divergent, okay? But this is this is just kind of what it's talking about here. Let me see where I left off. I'm not sure where I stopped on the last one, so I'm just going to kind of go up a little bit here. So let's see. Let's see. Okay, we don't think the law should be cruel to those castrated eunuchs um, who have who have been had this outrage inflicted on them. So, if they wish to adopt someone, they should have the power to do so. The emperor made these provisions about eunuchs without ever mentioning the distinction between types of eunuchs, which was crucial and indispensable to the early Roman legislatures. In spite of the fact the Gospel of Matthew also mentioned eunuchs who were born so from their mother's womb, he mentions them first, I might add, and that's very, very important, in distinction to a man-made voluntary eunuch, Matthew 19:12. Okay, so the lady by the name of Catherine Ringrose, uh, these are other articles and books that I would, want you guys to read as well. Others have mentioned the change in meaning of eunuch between the 3rd and 12th centuries. Now we know that change consisted of, before, eunuchs were primary anatomically whole men, while later only anatomically deprived men were eunuchs. Okay, because the Catholic Church wanted to take the power away from the eunuchs who had the ear of the kings and pharaohs and were beloved and were put in high places and so forth. They were enemies of each other. All right. So the natural eunuchs who gave into their own, wait, sorry, I jumped a whole paragraph here. Under Christianity, the lack of a sexual drive towards women once made natural eunuchs stand out and could no longer be the basis for distinguishing types of men. A man who lacked sexual desire for women had options. He could become a celibate priest, or he could remain celibate within marriage if he wanted. Not fair to the wife, but okay. In fact, it was often admired for couples to refrain from sexual indulgence, although one would hope that the bride had been made aware beforehand of her husband's lack of interest in her, and it still happens today. So I have often thought that the ideal Christian marriage would be between a gay man and a lesbian. They would truly have sex only for procreation. Since writing this, I have posted an essay that pinpoints the transformation in the meaning of eunuch more precisely in the 4th century as an outcome of conflicts over church doctrine, in which eunuchs were said to play a role, and the establishment of one party to the conflict as the official imperial church. Those natural eunuchs who gave into their own sexual desire were branded as sodomites. In fact, Justinian's new Constitution 141, in exhorting men of their empire to abandon male-on-male homosexual practices, notes that some men will more obstinately continue in their ungodly habits, and it cautions that the full force of law would be brought against them. Sure, they already made them go against their natural instincts. Jeez. Okay. In the Western Christian Visigothic Code of the late 7th century, the eunuch category disappears, and the active passive partners in male homosexual acts were subject to castration. Oh boy. In the Eastern Western Christianity, natural eunuchs became total celibates, and if they did give into their lust, they kept it in the closet or risked being killed or becoming man-made eunuchs. Natural eunuchs in the Talmud. Never fit, but possibly curable. Yeah, sure. Like the Roman law, the Talmud also distinguished with clear legal consequences between natural and man-made eunuchs. In Yebamoth, chapter 8, folio 79b, Rabbi Joshua posted a question about contradiction he had encountered in the law. According to the Bible, Deuteronomy 25:5-10, when a man dies childless, his brother's responsibility to marry the widow and engender a child in his brother's name. Any man who refuses to give his deceased brother a child in this way is disgraced and must submit to a humiliating public ceremony called the Khalisa. I know I'm not saying that right. Chalitshah, in which the widow removes one of his shoes and spits in his face. Oh, delightful. From when on the reluctant brother's family is known as the house of him who had the shoe loosened. And I can't speak Hebrew, so I'm not going to even try it. The legal problem puzzling Rabbi Joshua was this. I have heard that a eunuch submits to a khalisa, and that the khalisa is arranged for his wife, and also the eunuch does not submit to the khalisa, and that no khalisa is arranged for his wife, then I'm unable to explain this. The text continues with two conflicting explanations by the Tananim. Okay. And this goes on about the Talmudic law. I don't know if that's really interesting. Okay, so I'm going to go into the third gender. Discussions of natural eunuchs are not only found in Roman and Jewish law, but also in Greek and Latin literature. Aristotle warned that some boys indulging in a repetitive and intercourse would grow to like it, and might become impubescent from birth and non-procreative due to an imperfection of the reproductive organs. Pliny and Elder assign eunuchs and hermaphrodites to the third gender called half-male, saying this category also included men whose testes were destroyed either by injury or by natural causes. Thus, Pinley distinguished between eunuchs and men whose testes were destroyed, even while categorizing them together, along with the hermaphrodites, as third gender half-males. This physiognomy, Adamantis said that the characteristics of natural eunuchs are worse than those of other men. So most of them are savage, deceitful, evildoers, each one more so than the last. Of the cut eunuchs, though, some characteristics change over at the same time as the cut, but most of their congenial nature remains. Okay, so notice that Anamentos described natural eunuchs in distinctly psychological terms, having certain personality characteristics. These characteristics were not observable for the most part in cut eunuchs, who retained most of their congenial nature as males. I translate this passage differently than Catherine Ringrose did in her essay. She did not make a distinction here between natural and cut eunuchs, but I was led by Ernst Mast in his 1925 essay, Unakokos and Verwandes, this is Greek, who saw the same distinction in Anamatos as in Eupian's statement about natural and man-made eunuchs. Notice too Anamatos' viciously, disdainfully attitude toward natural eunuchs. Isn't it not reminiscent of negative attitudes toward passive homosexuals as noted frequently in modern scholarship about homosexuality in the classical world? Yeah, it's the same today. So, in the same vein, we see the statement given by Lucian's character Dioscels in the eunuch, that a eunuch is worse off than a castrated priest of Cybele Bakelos, for the latter had at least known manhood once, but the eunuch had been cut off from the very first, and was an ambiguous sort of creature like a crow, which cannot be reckoned with either doves or ravens. Likewise, Dioceses' explanation that a eunuch is neither male nor female, but something composite, hybrid, monstrous, alien to human nature. Well, he obviously didn't like homosexuals. In Lucian's dialogue, a self-proclaimed eunuch is competing against Dioceles, who is a male, in a public contest for an endowed chair in philosophy, and the male has argued that no eunuch should hold such a position of dignity and honor. The eunuch argues in rebuttal that even women can be philosophers, so a eunuch certainly can be. Eunuch 7. Nonetheless, the dispute continues, and towards the end of the dialogue, when a bystander claims to know that this eunuch is not really a eunuch, but merely assumed his identity falsely to escape a prior adultery charge, Lucian exploits the tension existing in his time between the definitions of mutilated and anatomically whole eunuchs. Lucian several times indicates that impotence, especially with women, is a defining feature of certain eunuchs. It is true that half of the spectators wanted to lift the supposed eunuch's cloak and inspect him, as they do with slaves purchased with silver. Eunuch 12. This corresponds to the man-made eunuch, and others had the even more ridiculous idea to fetch some women from a brothel and put him in a room and order them to have sex with them. The oldest and most trustworthy judge should stand by to observe whether he was able to perform. This corresponds to the anatomically whole eunuch, who is impotent because he does not feel the heat of passion for women. The tests are never performed, but the reputed eunuch, who now wants to be thought of as a male in order to secure the academic position, sets to having sex with as many women as he can to prove he's not a eunuch. And the narrator of the story prays at the end that his young son will have the genital skills required to be a philosopher. Eunuch 13. Okay, I don't know what that proves or disproves or whatever, but I just thought I would just go ahead and read that. Unwilling but not able. Look, I'm just going to just tell you right now that homosexual men and women, they're just not able to. They're physically, if they have the parts, they're able to procreate, but they just don't want to. Okay, they just don't have it. It's like doing it with